We have been reviewing design and illustration contests for a while on our channel. This time, I'm really proud to showcase a logo design project where the winner is one of our own students. He joined our pro membership program to improve his design skills, and within 2 months, he managed to win the very first design contest he entered. Let's see how he managed to achieve that. Alright, so the way I'm going to go through this review is that first we will look at the brief, so what exactly was written in the brief by the client, and then based on that we will have a look at 10 entries and compare them, and I'm going to go through why I think some of them are more successful than others, and then finally we will take a look at the winning design. Now, the interesting thing about this contest is that the winner is actually one of our students, Dante, who has been studying from our courses, and he's a pro member, so he's also working on creative assignments with us. And this was his first competition that he entered, and he immediately won. So we are really proud of him, and I'm excited to show you how he managed to pull off winning the first ever competition he entered. In case you are looking for mentorship and want to get better at graphic design or illustration, you can learn directly from us by joining the Pro membership option on our site. There's a link in the description below and you can find out more about it. But in a nutshell, it means that besides learning from our online courses where you can pick up new skills and get better at using the software like Illustrator and Photoshop, we give you projects to work on, and then you can submit your work on our site and we will give you reviews. And once you become a pro member, you also get access to our closed group on Facebook, which is like a forum where we keep track of all of our students, but also open up discussions amongst them and even sometimes share job opportunities. Okay, so back to the actual analysis. First thing I wanted to talk about is the brief, and it was a very clear brief put together by the client. It's for a security company who specialized in training dogs for sniffing out explosives, firearms, drugs, and so on and so forth. And they mentioned in their brief that the dogs are typically Labradors and Spaniels. They are not attack dogs. That's quite important. So whenever you read the brief, even if it's short, you should make sure that every word that is included in the brief should be considered when you work on it. So this is actually something I did as a little side research. I looked at the dogs that they mentioned to make sure that when I look at the illustrations used in the logos, I know exactly which dog breed they mentioned and whether they were the ones used by the designers. So they mentioned these 2 dog breeds, and I found images of them from the side, which shows their silhouette really well, and also we can see them in action below. Now, besides this, the client also included a few logos as an inspiration. So these are the type of logo designs that they liked. And out of these, probably this one here on the right is the one that resembles most the winning design. Plus, we have a color theme. They obviously wanted the blue color theme mainly, but they also said that the designer's choice can be to use any of these other colors if they wanted to explore that. And last but not least, of course, the name of the logo should incorporate VOCSK9, which is the name of the company. And they didn't want any additional slogans to be added to the logo, so just that text and then an illustration. Now, they were not specific about whether they wanted a word mark or something that has an illustrative element as well, but based on the examples that they show here in the inspiration, it seems like this is the type of complexity that they are after. Based on this, here are the 10 entries that I picked to go through in this analysis out of the 84 total entries. So the first 3 here on the top, A1 to A3 from the same designer, we can see that it has the same silhouette used in all of them. So we can spot the dog's silhouette there, and it's actually a Labrador or Retriever or something like that. So it actually works well with the brief, but unfortunately it gets lost, and I feel like it is unnecessarily divided into different sections. So the first entry, A1, for example, has S highlighted for no reason, like that has that line in the middle while the rest of the text doesn't. So it stands out, but it's actually not an important part of the logo. The important part is this here on the right. And because the silhouette is added there, it adds some emphasis, but it's also a bit confusing at the same time, especially because there's not enough gap between the first part of the logo and the second. In terms of separation, I think A2, the second version, is doing a better job. So here we don't have difference in the first 4 letters. It's quite nice and creates one unit. Plus, I also like the fact that we have a more diagonal line here, which cuts the logo on the left. Works much better than the first one. And also, in general, the font used works better with this composition. So number 9, for example, reads much better than this one here, which is like an ultra wide font. It's always a bit more difficult to read it. Not to mention, when you work with a logo that is really thin and long, it is quite difficult to place it on products and just generally to work with it. While when you have a little bit more of a better rectangular shape, so the proportions are not that far away from each other, the width and the height, it usually has a better usability, so it's easier to work with. An even better shape in terms of the aspect ratio of the logo, I would say, is A3, again, still from the same designer. But here definitely is the problem that we completely lost the K. So I can see number 9, but the K is completely gone. So very important whenever you use typography and you start adding negative space elements, like in this case, the head of the dog, you have to make sure that the text is still legible. That is the priority, and then you can work around it to incorporate design elements, as long as you are not losing legibility. But let's move on to the next category, so B1 to B3. Again, I combined some of these entries together into groups because I feel like they are similar in a way. The main reason I included these numbers is so that you can use the comment section below and you can say whichever is your favorite, or you can just talk about them, and then it's much easier to say B2 is the one that you are talking about, for example. So I would love to see what you think and whichever is your personal favorite. In this category, I felt like the designers went a little bit too far into the security aspect and made very serious logos. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's worth trying it out and then see how the client responds. Whether it's a competition or whether you are working directly with the client, it's good to explore this direction as well. But once you feel like the client actually wants a bit more friendly approach on the logo, then you have to make sure that you are not going too far into a direction like this. So especially this first one here almost looks like a transformer, like a robot. It becomes a bit too serious. And also the dog doesn't really resemble the breeds that they mentioned. B2, the other logo here, looks a bit more like a sports team's emblem, which again is a great design, but not specifically what the client wanted. And it's a little bit too complex as well. I feel like that might be the reason why the client didn't choose it. And then we have B3, which is an interesting contradicting logo, which has a very serious treatment, the metallic, almost military-like font and text. But then we have this cute paw in the middle. So it's just such a weird combination, and I think that's why, again, the client didn't like it, or again, it might be a little bit too serious for the client and the brand. So then we reach the third category, which I just marked C1 to C4. And I think these are the logos that are the closest to be winners, although they were not the winning logos, but I think they are the closest to what the client wanted. Again, we have the same color theme. There was no issue with that in the previous logos, but here we start to see a bit more closer resemblance on the silhouettes that the client was asking for, and also generally the style. Now, again, I haven't talked to the client directly, so I'm not sure why they declined these and why they didn't choose them as winners, but there's a few things I can mention which I think would have improved them. First of all, on C1, the biggest problem, in my opinion, is that the dog silhouette is tiny and it's affecting, again, the legibility of the letter K. when it's this small, you won't even be able to make it out that there is a dog there. You just feel like, I can't really read that letter, and it's a very important letter. So this is not a good direction. I think for this one, it would have been enough to just include the paw in the O, and that's enough. You don't have to combine so many different hints and elements to go with the theme of dogs. Compared to this, the second one, C2, does a much better job. It's a very professional and stylized logo, so I really like this one. The only thing I would mention here is I'm not sure what would this part represent. It looks like a wave. Because it's blue, I think it feels even more like water, but it's just not really making sense. Why is that necessary? So it's a little bit indulgent when a designer would do something like that. So it looks cool, but does that actually help to tell the story of the brand, or does it actually help to explain what the client wanted? And this all comes down to proportional density, which means the less element you can use in a logo to tell the most amount of information is the better. So when you are adding elements in, and that applies to C1 and C2 as well, which doesn't actually explain anything or it doesn't add meaning to the logo, then it is not necessary. So try to cut down on any unnecessary details. The same goes for C3 with this framing device. I'm not sure why was that necessary, apart from just defining a style, which doesn't actually go with the rest of the logo in my opinion. But also cutting the dog here and here is not really necessary. To be honest, the second part here and here would actually make sense to define the legs behind and the legs in the front, but the other cut here on the top is again just like an indulgent, unnecessary curve which divides the logo, and there's actually no hidden meaning or additional meaning added with that division. And finally, with C4, we can see a really cool silhouette. I really like this one because it really shows the momentum and the action while the dog is sniffing something out, but it's just a bit overpowering. So it's too big of an element. So all of this big area here is just taken up by the illustration, and then we have the text below it. And the text itself, I feel like, is a bit weak. So the font being used there. Also, the pin here in the middle, I'm not 100% sure why that was needed. And then also, these are the things you should avoid. Adding additional text where the client didn't ask for it is probably not a good idea, and it's unnecessary. So although this logo again had potential because it's a nice silhouette, it's just a bit overcrowded and overcomplicated for what is working well in a logo. And now that we've seen all of these entries, here is the winning design by Denta, our student. And I think he did a really good job at simplifying the logo. So the less is more really works here. And we can clearly see the two elements. So the little illustration here on the left and then the type on the right. I like the way Denta showed how it would work in a smaller size as well. So we can have the logo used horizontally, but we can also use it more like in a square format. So that just creates a nice bounding box. And then there is also the negative version of it. So if it's used on a darker background, then this is how it would look like in that case. I think the main reason why this became the winning design is because it's clear, it's simple, it follows the brief very closely. So even the silhouette of the dog fits the description, what the client asked about. The only element which I feel like is a little bit unnecessary is this circle here on the top right. But again, Danta mentioned that in the description for this entry, that could be anything that the dog is sniffing out. So it's an object which doesn't have to be defined, and it can be a little bit more abstract. So in a way it works, and if the client liked it, then that's great. I think it could work even without that. And maybe one additional thing, I would probably increase the size of the dog's head slightly to get rid of this line here on the left. So it has a thin line there, which might be a little bit too thin, especially when it's looked at from a distance and the logo is printed in a small size. That might be an issue to see properly. But apart from that, I think it is a great design. And once again, congratulations to Danta for winning the first whatever competition he entered. And last but not least, I wanted to mention that I used MILANOTE to put everything together in this board and to be able to go through and explain what I thought about this contest. It's a brilliant tool for organizing everything from imagery to text into one place, and you can try it out for free. You just have to go to milanote.com/yesimAdesigner or click on the link in the description below. Me and my team, we recently started using it and it completely changed the way we prepare things and work with clients. So I can highly recommend it. If you are a creative professional designer and you work with a lot of visuals, this tool is going to be so useful, and you're honestly missing out if you haven't tried it already. Thanks a lot for watching. Like and share this video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we release new videos. Click on the link on my right and start your membership today to get access to over 200 hours of training courses and personal mentoring by me and my team of creative professionals. Have fun learning, guys, and I will see you in the next one.